Hey you guys, welcome back to K&K's Inspired Creations. Today I'm going to be making a pumpkin bundt cake using the mini stackable pumpkins that you can get from Dollar Tree. Not the big ones, but the mini ones. So I basically started off by obviously opening the package and, taking them apart. And so I ended up having 2 packs because I wanted to make a set to put on my dining room table once I put all my fall stuff on there. And so the first thing I ended up doing was I wanted to cut off the top part so that it could look more like a bundt cake and like a little bit of whipped icing at the top. So I got this hot knife from, I don't know, Temu, Amazon, something. And it's basically used to cut through styrofoam, but since this is plastic, I can also cut through it. So it took a little bit of time, but it definitely did exactly what I needed. And I did actually put on a mask, like a ventilation mask, because you really shouldn't breathe in the fumes of melted plastic. So if you do plan to do something like this, definitely do it outside in a well-ventilated area, especially if you do not have like a mask to put on your face, like a ventilation mask. And even then, still you want to open the windows and stuff like that because you really don't want to breathe that in. Some people actually do this at the, in their kitchen, and they'll just put like a metal knife on the stove and let it heat up, and then it'll pretty much do the same thing. You'll just have to keep heating the knife up. But I'm sure there's different ways and easier ways and safer ways to do this part. If you want to do this part, you definitely don't have to, but it was just something that I chose to do. And yeah, so that's all I'm doing. And I do want to take a second to thank you so much for checking out my video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so that you're notified every time I post. I haven't been doing a great job of posting lately, but I've been making so many things, and I've just been very distracted. But my goal is to start posting more. So as you can see, I got that first hole on there, and then I'm going to end up doing the other one as well. And also, please do me a favor and hype my channel. I'm a brand new YouTuber. I only have a couple of subscribers, so if you can hype my video and get me in front of other people that I think would like my stuff, it'd be greatly appreciated. So back to the crafts. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I'm using the hot knife again just to basically cut a hole into the top of this pumpkin as well. And since I did it once before, I'm going ahead and speed this part up. And now I'm just going to turn it off because it gets really hot, and I'm using a wet wipe or a baby wipe to kind of just try to wipe it down because it has that plastic on it. I know these don't last too long because styrofoam and everything gets stuck to it and makes it harder to use, but I don't know, I like to try to wipe it down while it's still a little hot and hopefully preserve this little thing for a little bit longer. So the next thing I was going to do is go ahead and paint my pumpkins. I definitely wasn't going to leave it this plastic orange color. And so I get a lot of my paint either from Walmart, the Apple Barrel brand, which is going to be the orange. I think it's literally just called pumpkin orange from Apple Barrel. You can get it from Walmart. And the brown I'm using is literally just an acrylic brown paint that you can get from Dollar Tree because I actually really like Dollar Tree's paint as well. So I usually will do something between Dollar Tree's paint acrylics as well as Walmart's from Apple Barrel. And so I'm just going to add some brown paint into this little container so that I can mix the colors together. And then I'm going to add some of that pumpkin orange. And I'm just going to continue to add either the brown or the orange to the mixture until I get the color that I'm looking for. And the color that I was going for was more of like a burnt orange. That's the kind of fall orange that I personally like, but you can do, any orange that you're more so interested in, or you can leave it the plastic orange if you want to. It's definitely up to you. But once I got it the color that I wanted, I ended up adding a whole bunch of Mod Podge into it. And the purpose of me doing that was to try and make sure that it sticks to the pumpkin. And also my hope is that I won't have to go back over it with Mod Podge. I can always just seal it with like a spray sealer if I want to, or not, maybe not, because there's already Mod Podge in it. But again, my goal was hoping that since there's Mod Podge in it, it'll stick to the plastic better, and I won't have to do like a million different coatings of the paint. It did stick to it okay, but it probably would have worked a lot better, and I might not have needed as much coverage if I was trying to cover one of the white pumpkins. Trying to cover that bright orange, I think, was going to be difficult regardless. So I think I used maybe 2, maybe 3 coats just to get it the color that I wanted, so that I covered up that really bright shiny orange. And I think I used a matte Mod Podge. I think I used a matte Mod Podge so that it wasn't like extra shiny as well. And that's pretty much all I'm gonna do. I'm using one of the little daubers that you can get from Dollar Tree. In my opinion, especially for something project this big. Plus, I like for my stuff to have a little bit of a texture to it. So I use a dauber, but you can always use a large paintbrush if you wanted to. I'm not a big fan of the brush strokes, so I prefer to use these daubers, and then it gives it a nice little like texture to it as well. So, but you can do it however you want. And since we all pretty much know how to paint, I sped it up, and I only pretty much showed myself painting one, but in retrospect, I painted all of the pumpkins. And so as I was allowing the pumpkins to dry after all 3 coats, I'm going to go ahead with my air dry clay. I get my air dry clay from Designs by Janera. You can find her on Facebook, and you can actually order air dry clay from her. It's some of the best clay that I actually have ever used, so definitely a good person to get it from. But the purpose of this is to make drips. So like I said, I'm making a bundt cake, but I want this bundt cake to have like an icing drip to it. And I could have used like, spackle, watered down spackle, or, puffy paint. But I just wanted to use clay. I wanted to have clay as well as spackle on this particular project. I like to use both, and I like to use different types of textures. So that's what I did. But you can take some spackle and put it in like a container, and then take like some Mod Podge and then just water it down, and you can use that as your drip, or you can literally just go to the store and get some puffy paint or fabric paint and do the exact same thing. So like I said, I'm going to be using some foam clay, and all I'm doing right now is just warming the clay up by playing with it a little bit, and that just helps it so that once I get it cut out and put onto my project, when you do that, it usually helps it from cracking later on when it starts to dry. So you definitely want to do that anytime you start using foam clay. And now I'm just kind of spreading it out using a roller. I only use this for air dry clay or any type of clay, but I don't use this in the kitchen anymore. And it's actually a really nice one. I think it's like aluminum or something. It's my grandma. She doesn't bake anymore, so she didn't need it, and she allowed me to have it for my fake bakes since I'm not an actual baker. She said I could use it for my fake bakes, and I do, and I love it. But yeah, so now I'm just kind of rolling it out, trying to make it big enough so that it fits, so that the cookie cutter or clay cutter, or what do you want to call it, it's big enough, is wide enough for what I want to use it for. And it is big enough, so I am going to go ahead and push it down. I like to pull the clay from around the cookie cutter, and then pull up the clay. For me, that's the easiest way for me to do this, instead of pulling the whole thing up and however other people do it. This is the easiest way for me. And so one of the ways that I pretty much get the clay to come off of the cookie cutter is by using clay. And that probably sounds funny, but I mean, there's other ways you can do it. You can use like baby oil, put baby oil on your cookie cutter before using it. Some people will do like soapy water. They'll dip the cookie cutter into soapy water before putting it on the air dry clay. Some people use flour. I sometimes will use the baby oil if it's like a really small cutter or cookie cutter or whatever you call it. But for the big one, I usually just use clay to pull it away from the cookie cutter. And no, it's not perfect. It didn't come out perfectly, but it is icing. So because it is supposed to be icing, and there's nothing perfect about icing or drip or how it, drips down, I figured that was perfectly fine. And so the next thing I did is I just wanted to make sure that it was big enough for this bottom pumpkin. And to me, it just wasn't as long as I wanted it to be, and it was still kind of thick. So I'm basically going to just take my rolling pin and try to smooth it, or push it out a little bit more, which it did. It did make the drips a little bit longer, so that when it was on the bigger pumpkin, it went further down on the bigger pumpkin. The second one and the third one, I didn't need to do that because they're much smaller and the drip was perfect for those. But for this one, I just wanted it a little bit, longer, if that makes sense. And so the next thing I did was I found a round cookie cutter that was a little bit bigger than the rim of the pumpkin part that you snap it together with. And I'm going to put a hole in, and this is just me making sure that it's, exactly how I want it. But I'm just going to put a hole in the middle of the icing, because if I don't do that, then it will either not, click to the other pumpkins, or to make it more difficult to do it. But yeah. And air dry clay dries out super fast. So whenever you're not using a piece, I would always recommend to put it back into the bag. And so now I'm taking a little bit of tacky glue, which is something that you can get from Dollar Tree too. It's an excellent glue. It actually dries clear, but it doesn't matter with this particular project whether it dries clear or not. But it does dry clear. And so I'm taking some of this tacky glue, putting it on the inside of my cutout, and then I'm going to adhere it to the pumpkin. The air dry clay is still, pretty moist because I just took it out of the packaging, but I prefer to use something just to make sure that it adheres, long term, if that makes sense. And now I'm just going to put it on there. For me, it seemed like it was easier to, instead of trying to pick it up, the icing while it's wet, and put it on top, it made more sense. It was a lot easier just to take the pumpkin and put it, try to put it where the hole is. It was just easier that way for me personally. And I just flipped it over, and as you can see, it actually did work out the best that way. So that's how I ended up doing all of my pumpkins, all 6 of them. I did it that way, and just pressed it down just to make sure that it was, sticking to the pumpkin, so that, it would be there long term. And then I'm just going to take the next pumpkin just to make sure it still clicks like it's supposed to easily, and it does. So yeah, it definitely worked out. And so I'm about to do pretty much the same thing with the rest of the pumpkins, just cutting out a drip and adhering it to it. So since I already did it once, I'm going to just speed this part up. Now for the very top pumpkin, the smallest one, I'm not going to do a drip. I'm going to take some of the air dry clay, use one of the circular cookie cutters, cut it off in a circle, and just cover the top hole because I wanted it to be flat, because that's where I'm planning to put my spackle. So like I said, I'm going to just sit it right on top, and that's just to cover that hole so that when I do my spackle topper for the bundt cake, it doesn't fall through the pumpkin, which would, kind of defeat the purpose. And so before actually doing the spackle on top, I decided that I wanted to put nuts on the icing, the drip icing, or that I use with the, oh my god, I can't talk today, the air dry clay. So I took some more of that glue that you can get from Dollar Tree. I'm going to kind of spread it down with a paintbrush, and then I'm going to just kind of drizzle my fake nuts onto the icing or the drip. And the nuts, the fake nuts are just Cape Cod. It's like a hamster bedding. So like you can go to I think I found mine on Amazon. And it looks just like, cut up or crunched up or however you would call it, chopped up peanuts. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I took some of that glue that I got from Dollar Tree, putting it on there, spreading it out. And then I'm going to sprinkle it on there, and it just makes it look so much better. It was kind of plain and boring without it, but it came out really nice. The end result actually came out really, really nice. And I was only doing a small amount at a time because I wasn't sure if this type of glue, dries fast, because a lot of times I'll use something called silicone glue, and that silicone glue does actually dry really fast. So I'll do like half of a project and then, do the rest of it. I won't do it all at once. But by the time I was on my second pumpkin, I just put, the glue on all of the icing. And then it was still wet when it was time for me to go ahead and add the fake nuts. So you can definitely do it that way. It's a lot less time consuming. And since I'm pretty much just doing the same thing, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. And I'm definitely glad that I did that. I feel like it just added something to it. I feel like it elevated this project by adding the little nuts to the bundt cake, the pumpkin bundt cake. And so now I'm going to go ahead and do my top icing whip topper. I'm going to be using Spackle for this part. I like, for my whipped cream, I like to use, this is DAP, and it's lightweight DAP Spackle white. This one I like because it has the perfect texture for whipped cream, and it's white and it stays white, which is very important. And so I'm also using a piping tip. You can use whatever kind you want. There's one that I like. I think it's like 3D. That's like one of my favorite ones. And you want to get a piping bag. You can literally get piping bags. You can, if you're lucky, you can find Spackle. It's not going to be this Spackle. The Spackle that you can potentially find at Dollar Tree is a little bit drier than this one. So you want to definitely put some white paint in there to make the texture more like whipped icing, like whipped cream. But then also it's kind of a grayish color, so the white will also, it'll do two things: make it white and like soften up the Spackle. If you're just doing like a small project. And you can get piping tips and piping bags from Dollar Tree, or you know, any store, honestly. And so I'm just basically using a old Spackle, like old bag that I've used many times. For Spackle, you can actually reuse the same bag over and over again. It actually works. I wouldn't try that with silicone caulk. I use silicone caulk for certain projects too, but I wouldn't reuse the same bag. It doesn't work the same way. And to make it easier, I like to use like a cup. Pull the cup over, not pull the cup, but like pull the plastic piping bag over the cup, and that makes it easier to scoop the Spackle into the piping bag. There's other ways to do it, but that's just how I do it. And this container that I actually got from the Dollar Tree, I put it in a dishwasher, and the dishwasher kind of messed it up. So now I use it for my, you know, projects, especially when I'm using Spackle, since I can't drink out of it anymore. So I'm just stirring it up because it's been sitting for a while, and you definitely want to do that. Otherwise, I don't know, it just makes it weird. It's better to pretty much condition and warm up anything you're about to use before you use it, if that makes sense. It just helps it out. And I'm just going to get as much in there as I possibly can. I don't need that much Spackle, like a ton of Spackle for this particular project, but I'm the type of person where I don't like having to stop and have to refill the bag if possible. So I'm going to try to put as much in that bag as I possibly can the first time. Spackle is also extremely messy. And Spackle is not one of those things that you want to wash down the drain. So I buy a ton of baby wipes to clean off anything that I'm using for Spackle. So obviously the spatula or the spoon I would never use, you know, in the kitchen ever again. But I'm not going to wash it off in the sink because it can clog up your pipes and stuff like that. So I always use a baby wipe when I'm getting it off of my hands, when I'm getting it off an instrument or anything like that. That's how I clean it off. Unless you go outside and use like the hose outside to clean it off, I would never, you know, do it inside your house in your sink because it's not good for it. It could clog it, or I don't know, do worse. Just, yeah, I don't know. Just don't do it. Just take that from me and don't do it. And make sure you put the top on really well because you don't want it to dry out on you. The tub that I have is a big tub because I do a lot of different projects when it comes to using this Spackle, whether it's like a fake cake or fake ice cream, fake mug toppers, fake anything. So you definitely want to make sure it gets on there tight because you don't want it to dry out on you. And you can't use it anymore. That would really suck. And so I got my Spackle in there, and I'm just going to kind of push it down to the bottom, and then I'm going to add it to another piping bag, which actually has the tip on it, and then that's normally how I, you know, pipe my stuff. And since this is an older piping bag and piping tip, I always just try it on a paper towel beforehand just to make sure that it didn't dry out. I always keep it inside of another piping bag, and then I twist it up real good so no air gets in there. And that really honestly keeps it good for, a long time, weeks, months, all that good stuff. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and pipe. And piping is actually really easy. It's fun. It's satisfying. But what I do is I just kind of start from the outer edge and work my way in. And since I want it to kind of go up a little bit, you could also basically use like half of a styrofoam ball. But I ended up just putting spackle in the middle. And then I went around the outer edge and then came back in on top of the spackle that I put in the middle. And that way the spackle doesn't collapse on itself. And that's pretty much it. It came out nice. It looks so good. And I'm going to go ahead and add some more nuts to this as well, the top part of this as well, to kind of finish it off. But yeah, it came out really nice. I did a really good job. I also forgot that I did end up cutting down a couple of cinnamon sticks to put into the spackle or the icing as well. So that's what I'm going to use. And I ended up using, I don't really know what they're called. I got them from Dollar Tree, but you normally use them to cut the stems off of flowers. And that's normally what I use it for, to cut the stems off of fake flowers, which is really hard to do because it's like a metal wire in there. But it also works really good when you're trying to cut through cinnamon sticks. I've used one of my best scissors before, but it always breaks it into a lot of small little pieces. So I would recommend this to do it if you're going to do the same thing. And like I said, I got these from Dollar Tree, so they were like $1.25, probably like $1.50 now, maybe still $1.25. I don't know. You gotta go check. And so now I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm gonna add the peanuts to the top, and then I think I'm going to finish it off with some actual cinnamon to give it a nice little color and smell. And sorry about that. I didn't mean to cover the camera. I was just trying to get it to where the nuts didn't go all over the place. But yeah. And then I normally take some tweezers and push all of the individual peanuts into the spackle. A lot of times it will stick, but I just do this just to make sure. I do that with sprinkles as well, just to make sure that they don't fall off at a later time. And I don't think you have to do that part. It probably will stick to the spackle since it's wet, but that's just something that I do. And I definitely know that I'm very heavy-handed when it comes to cinnamon. I'm the same way with glitter as well. I like a lot of cinnamon and I like a lot of glitter. But it's not necessary to put that much cinnamon on there if you don't want to. I just like the look of cinnamon, and I love the smell of cinnamon too. So I do a lot of cinnamon on my stuff. And I believe the last thing I did was I added a little wooden leaf that I believe I got from Dollar Tree. I'm not really sure. And I just added it to the very top as an extra little accent. I didn't feel like it needed anything else except for that. And this is the final result. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype this video. Thanks for watching.